Lovely. Great. So I'll just briefly introduce Rachel. She has had a wonderful and varied career, everything from being a classically trained musician and then ending up in software development. Most recently, she was at Xero as their head of engineering, and she is the incoming head of engineering at CoGo, which does some really great work around the carbon tracking space. And outside of the office, she does long trail runs. She's got a rescue dog named Jasper, and spends time with her family, her children, and her partner. And I can say I got to see her speak recently at the DevNext conference, and so I know she's a really amazing speaker. And with that, I will stop my sharing and pass it over to you, Rachel. And so let me.
Cool, thanks, Lauren. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I have to explain before I start my slides, because I'm in a period of what you might call fun employment, is what I understand. So I've left my recent role and I'm taking some lovely time off before I start CoGo. That means instead of a flash MacBook, I've got one of my kids' old Chromebooks, which is what I'm talking on now. So I can't easily adjust my pronouns to she, her. And I can't give you a background that looks better than this travesty of my office / music room that you see behind me. But I'm going to shrink that now and share my slides. And oh, this all looks a bit different. Let's give this a go. Cool. Can we see that? I'm hoping the answer is yes.
Yep. Yes, we can.
Yay. Excellent, thank you. So look, firstly, thanks to Lauren and the team at Multitudes for creating the series. It's super exciting to be the first person to kick it off. So yes, feedback's going to be really important. Learning, I think, seems like such a great topic to start with, because I know we all need to learn all the time about everything. So now with any talk, the talk is going to be product of experiences and environments of the speaker, of me. So I'm going to, even though you've had a précis of my life, I'm going to whiz through that, because that will provide a little bit more information about this topic and where I'm coming from on it. So I did describe myself as a lifelong learner. I've had a 25-year career in delivering software. I was a developer for a really long time, and then moved into the leadership space. But that was after the classical clarinet degree and the musicology master's degree, and I completely unexpectedly got into being a developer. So as I started in 1997, that was Visual Basic 4 desktop app development. So that was some stuff to learn back then. Moved on, of course, to .NET, C#, web apps, and API development. I had a short but glorious spell of time, I like to think, as a Ruby on Rails developer at PowerShop, but then moved on into what I'll describe as being an engineering manager, so having engineers report into me, and later being a manager of managers, so your dev manager and your head of engineering roles. And each of those points on this career timeline is a point of extreme learning. Most of what I'll be talking about today will be around sort of knowledge work and career stuff. But as Lauren alluded to, actually, with having a life, as we all do, learning is really happening all the time. I've learned to buy a house. I've learned to be a parent of small children. I'm still learning to be a parent to teenagers. It's going to take a while. I went from not running at all to learning how to run a 100K ultramarathon. I have passed a psychology paper recently, and I learned how to be a saxophone player in a covers band. So yeah, lots of learning. It's going to be framed up around careers today, but yeah, it's always on my mind. How do I learn? How might I improve what it is I do? So I've made a few assumptions about who you are and about why you might be here. I'm going to assume that all of you are learners, and you perhaps want to learn a bit more about how to inform your own learning and your own learning habits. I think lots of you are going to be leaders of some sort, seniors or managers or coaches, and you'll be thinking about your teams and the people around you and how to guide and support them. And I've got this sort of function of lobbyist here. I'd love that you all can be a lobbyist in your workplace for a great learning culture. You can advocate and sponsor for your people and lobby for change as well if you don't have the learning environment that you want. So that's who I think you are. Let's move on to what we're going to talk about today. 5 points. I've got a slide for each, a few bullet points, and a little bit of reading for each that might help you. And then we move into Q&A. So let's get going. Always learning all the time. I think I've even already said this phrase. You might have a computer science degree, or you might have been at a boot camp. You might have done an AWS course, all this formal training. But I think we never want to underestimate what we could and should be learning on the job. And this is from someone who spent their whole career in software development learning on the job. There's just a huge amount of learning that happens beyond that formal training. And how are you going to build that learning in? Well, I think, reading books and reading documentation for what you're doing is really important. And again, I've got the suggested reading that comes up. Observing what other people do, whether it's good or bad, and you want to emulate it or never do that, it's really important. And asking questions is huge too. I will forever be grateful to Rudy Yonker, who was an Oracle developer in my first job, and I asked him all of the questions about PL SQL. He was a very lovely and patient man. So I'd love that everyone could feel free to ask questions of those experts around them. Such a huge way of learning. I'm a big one for experimenting. And if there is anyone on this call who's recently worked with me at Xero, you might have placed bets on whether I'm going to say this phrase or not. Here it is. It's a paraphrase from Nelson Mandela, and it's, if you're not winning, you're learning. So this idea of experimenting, giving something a go, trying it out, didn't work, you know more than you knew before. So you're learning, and so that is what the opposite of winning is. And honestly, in the office, I say that probably about 20 times a day. And lastly, the point on this slide is that don't forget to think beyond those technical and domain skills that are important for the role that you're probably doing. Your core skills and your leadership skills are really huge. So let's move on now to a bit of suggested reading. I'll talk about why these books are here. We're talking about always learning all the time, and the book Mindset talks a lot about growth mindsets as opposed to fixed mindset. A growth mindset is a learning mindset. A fixed mindset is not. So I think you'll learn a lot about learning there. And because I've talked about coaching and leadership and those core skills, I'm putting in my top pick for a nice short book by Lara Hogan about those skills, resilient management. Okay, next. Learning is not linear, and I think getting context is chaotic. There was someone who I worked with early in my career, and I was amazed at the way he could be at point A and want to get to point B, and he just seemed to do that in a straight line. And the way I learn and the way I get from point A to point B has got lots of ups and downs. It's got lots of curls. It's a bit all over the place, and that is okay. It can be hard to realize that, I think, after weeks or months or years in a formal structured education. Learning what you need to learn on the job is quite different. There's no tick boxes. There's no sort of modules to follow. That might feel hard. So it might feel uncomfortable and it might feel chaotic. I haven't got an attribution for this, but I've heard that learning is something that happens beyond your comfort zone, but just beyond. If you're like within your comfort zone with what you're learning, are you learning? But if you're too far outside, that might be just too stressful to absorb. So you want that Goldilocks zone. And in terms of chaos, you will want to build your own path, your own structure to learn something. And you hopefully rely on the help of your peers, managers, and other experts to do that. So I think the important things here are just be patient, give yourself time to get better. Trust in yourself and how you learn. because you've done this before, you've learned stuff before, and you know more now than you did before. So you can trust in yourself. I think reflecting on where you are to see how far you've come is hugely important. And I think sometimes in a continuous improvement world, we might forget to do that. But if you've got a journal that records your learning, or just taking time out to understand that you finished something or you've learned more, I think that's really important. And lastly on this slide, I think creativity and just being playful with learning is super important. Read some fiction, I think. I know some people that only read like non-fiction workbooks. Read some non-fiction. You can really join some unexpected dots. And one of my favorite theories from Douglas Adams, who wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, and this is actually from Dirk Gently, he talks about the fundamental connectedness of all things. And I think it's surprising when you're reading about a completely different topic, the conclusions that you might draw to inform what's at hand for you at work. And also it gives you a great source of analogies, and I think that's really important in being fun. So a couple of books here that I recommend that would support that. There's a book called Range, which talks about how learning widely rather than narrowly brings great results. And Think Again by Adam Grant is another goodie. He talks a lot about curiosity. He talks about how important being doubtful is and questioning yourself and relearning, because science and culture and everything moves on, right? So what you learned perhaps a decade ago might need to be unlearned and relearned because we have new information. I have a soft spot for this book as well because I talk about imposter syndrome in a different talk. And here's a quote, which is, "Feeling like an imposter puts us in a beginner's mindset, leading us to question assumptions that others have taken for granted." So I think that's really cool. Like being a learner, being a beginner is actually a really powerful place to be rather than a, okay, lost my words there, but I think it's a really powerful place to be. Okay, moving on. I think it's really good to have a system. Now, you might have photographic memory, so this won't apply to you. But I think, like for the rest of us, having a system is really important so we can record our learning, we can revisit it, we can share it, and we can also use it to understand progress has been made. So you might want an external brain to remember stuff. And look, really, I'm talking about taking notes and being able to find them again. That bit's quite key. So where I've landed with this is I think it's really important to write stuff down. And I think that using the tools that you have, at least at first, like a notebook to write in or Google Docs, because they're nice and free, use that stuff before you go down any deep rabbit holes for Evernote or Obsidian or Roam Research or all of those tools. Practice before tools, I've written at the top here. I think that's really important. There's a few learning techniques that might apply well to different situations, which you might want to look into. Spaced repetition is quite good for sort of exam and test type of learning. Duolingo learns that a lot. It figures out what you can answer and won't give you that question again, and it will concentrate on the things that you're not getting right. So that's a bit of spaced repetition. Zettelkasten probably needs its own talk. I'm not the person to give that talk, but what I understand from that system of note-taking is two things. One is it's about taking notes and linking them to each other so that you can make those interesting, creative, innovative connections. The second thing from that is that writing down ideas from any source in your own words is really important. If you're copying and pasting quotes or just typing what you see, that's not going to stick like recreating things in your own words. The last point I've got here is about sharing notes to an audience, which can be really important. I think it's key to remember that one of those audience members that you're thinking about is yourself. It's future you. So the notes you record, you want to be able to find them and understand them again in future. So think of yourself as that future audience. But, again, writing a blog post, learning and having, say, blog post as part of what you do can be a great way to really consolidate your learning. So my suggested reading there, and talking about going down rabbit holes, well, I'm deep down the rabbit hole on building a second brain. Tiago Forte is someone, I followed his YouTube channel for a bit. And he's just, like 2 weeks ago, brought out a book on that subject, building a second brain. He uses Evernote to organize his life, essentially. You don't need to do that. It's much more a system that can be applied to any tool. So I'm experimenting with Notion. Let you know how that goes. Like I say, practice before tools. Don't spend a week or two on your tools before you know what you want to use it for. And secondly, I really like Cal Newport's So Good They Can't Ignore You, because it really focuses on thinking about your regular practice of learning over mulling about your distant dreams, because those distant dreams might be irrelevant or impractical. Thinking about what you do each day to learn and know a little bit more is important. Building it into what you do. Okay, next, and this is important, I think, for everyone as a learner, but also as leaders in a business. Like, how can we give our people the best chance to get learning? And I know from my perspective, I wondered for a long time, was I just a really bad procrastinator when I was sitting down to try and learn something? I'm human, so I'm a bit of a procrastinator there. But it's really just, I figured out I was not sure what I was going to do next. And so having a goal is great, or maybe 2 or 3 goals. Same for your people, have a good goal, 2 or 3 goals. But it's defining that next action which gets you closer to your goal, which is much more important than spending a week to come up with the master plan of getting from A to B. By the time you're 1 or 2 steps into that journey, you might decide that, in fact, you want to go to C, not to B. So just thinking about the next thing you do so that you're sure what you want to do next, that actually, for me, has been half the problem with procrastinating. When you want to learn, I think, you want to create that space where you can achieve those actions that you've defined. For me, although my office behind me is going to belie that fact, but everything in front of me is quite clear and quite nice. There's not too much stuff here. So that's important for me to focus. Turning off notifications is really important. And look, we all know how to use, well, okay, maybe not this Chromebook I've got in front of me, but our usual tech, we know how to use it well. You know how to put yourself in focus time to limit your notifications. There's a lot of great digital wellbeing functionality out there. So do investigate that. And another technique that you can do for yourself and support your people in doing is to book out that time for learning. And I talked before about how learning might be, say, reading. That's an important part. You've got an item on your backlog that you need to be working on. You're expected to be writing code for it. But you know what? If you've booked out 2 hours and you spend 10 minutes writing code after you spent the entire rest of the time reading up on what it is you're going to code, then that is likely success. But booking in that focus time is really important. And again, there's loads of tools which can encourage that traction. Pomodoro technique, that 25-minute timer, that's something you can follow up if you don't know about it. That's something that I use, especially if I'm finding it difficult to start what I'm doing. I can do anything for 25 minutes. And by the end of my first 25-minute spell, chances are I can go and do a whole bunch more 25-minute sections. I'm also very in love with Google's, the Google Calendar focus time, where you can set up a chunk of time and you can auto-decline any meetings that come in over the top of that. So no one who's booking meetings with you at short notice expects that you're going to turn up because that auto-decline has happened. So that's a cool tool. Loads more. Those are just a couple of suggestions. So for keeping on track with your learning, focusing your focus, you might consider these books. The first one, Indistractable, written by Nir Eyal, he also wrote a book called Hooked. So I find this quite interesting because he wrote about using the science of being hooked on stuff in this book, Hooked, and then wrote about the science of trying to get away from being distracted by stuff in Indistractable. So He, used what he knew for good and for evil is how I think of that. But to gain traction in what you want to do, you want to be indistractable. And the word traction is in there, so I think that's quite cute. And secondly, I've talked about habits a bit, like creating a learning habit might benefit from reading about the science of habits, and James Clear, also BJ Fogg with Tiny Habits. Those are a couple of books there. Okay, last section here, a bit about self-management of your learning. And this is a surprise, I think, for people who enter what I call knowledge work, whether you're a developer, whether you're just in any environment where you no longer have things structured for you, product owner, agile coaches. In any work context like that, I don't think you should expect your boss to build your learning or your growth plan for you. You'll want their support and you'll want their sponsorship. You might need a bit of money from them to buy the books, do the courses. But that isn't something that you should be spoon-fed or should be spoon-feeding your people. I think you really need to be able to form those learning plans and lead them yourself. So yeah, as a manager, help and support, but don't write these for your people. You could, however, be a good role manager and produce a really good learning plan for yourself. So I think to build a great learning plan, you want to really build it on reflection and feedback and coaching. All of those could probably just about do with their own talk, but you want to base what you're going to learn next based on where you are now. Like, where do you want to be and where are you now? Are there any gaps you don't know about? Are you getting some good sort of critical feedback from people? So that's really important to build that learning plan. Connecting with the right people or courses or mentors or whatever, that's really important. How are you going to get from A to B? Again, as a leader, like looking for opportunities. As an individual, you want to look for opportunities for yourself to fulfill your learning plan. But as a leader, that's something you can be, you're in these different meetings, these different forums. Look out for those opportunities when you can match the learning that someone is doing with the opportunity that presents itself. So that's super important. And I think everyone, said this before, should celebrate success, whether it's the exam that's passed or that work item, that backlog item that you didn't know how to do it at all, and you spent the time to learn about it and you've just delivered it. There's lots of success in there to celebrate. And reading for that, especially for people entering their career, I think Help, I Have a Manager, which is a zine by Julie Evans, is really cool. Gives people insight into what your manager might be up to, because in your early stage career, you may have no idea. And it really encourages self-direction and leadership. So that's a goodie. A bit of a surprise entry here is Radical Candor. Now, because this is around clarity of expectations, because that is the root of most miscommunication and misunderstanding, I think this is quite a good book, like either personally, at team level, or organisation, working across orgs. Clarity of expectations is where things often go awry. So Radical Candor gives you some help in, I'm trying to remember the byline. Oh yeah, care personally, so you care, but you challenge directly. And it talks about how to manage those two axes. Okay, so that is 5 areas, and it's a few points and a bit of suggested reading about that. Those are the 5 sort of top ticker items, I think, that came to me when I was out running one weekend. So what I'm going to do now, we'll open for Q&A, but I will stop sharing and we can go there. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So first of all, just, virtual round of applause for that. Really appreciated all your sharing, and yeah, so many great nuggets. So what I thought I'd do, I'll kick us off with a question, and then, because I know sometimes it can be helpful to have some thinking time. So I'll kick off with one, but then any questions you have, stick them in the chat, because I have lots, but also this is for you all. So please add in other questions you have too. But yeah, to kick it off, I really loved, so many points resonated, but one I wanted to dive deeper into is that structure to help people learn. And so one of the things that I know can be a challenge is just the workday gets busy, and also, you know, both for ourselves and also for our team members where we want to support their learning too. It can be hard to make sure that we're setting aside that time for learning. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you thought about that structure to learn, particularly around supporting your team members, you know, be it in your one-on-one conversations or in, you know, retros, or what were some of the things that have helped bring that structure to make sure you kept coming back to it as a team?
I mean, I think being a role model for that yourself, I mean, as a leader, you should still be learning. And so, you know, being the role model of the person who's got the 2 hours focus time, I think at some point I've had as my response in Google Calendar, I really need at least 5% of my week to advance what it is I know. You know, it's like, so I probably got a bit defensive there, but I need to be able to do that and stick with it so that I can show everyone around me how important I think that is, because if I'm asking others to do it and I'm not doing it myself, it's just not the message that I want to do. So honestly, I think booking that time is so key, because if you find that you're cancelling it all the time, then hey, that's a signal. And then you can work with your manager or whomever to preserve it. Now, I'm also really aware that I've said, hey, it should happen all the time. So it's not just book out the time, but build it into what you do. And, you know, if you've got a small task from your backlog as a developer that you're doing, you know, is it new to you? Do you need to learn around it? And so you should be able to build it into your estimate and see that that's a valuable thing to do in order to get that backlog item progressed. Yeah. But I think recognizing the value, being that as a role model in your team is really huge.
It's a great example.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm sorry, I'm not following chat very much, so I'm because it's distracting with everything. But yes, go for it, Daniel, because out loud questions is easy.
Yeah, with the sort of making it visible, making it more obvious and leading as a role model, with us being so much more distributed and remote than we used to be, what are some of the ways that you make that very visible and share your learning within your team?
I mean, I think I'll go back first again to the old calendar, like, because I have my calendar open to everyone in the company and I've clearly booked stuff out as focus time, and I might put what it is that I'm learning in there, so it's really visible if anyone wants to book time with me. You know, it's there as evidence. I think, you know, I've talked about sharing, and whether it's a blog post or whether it's just the joy of learning, and it's like, wow, I was reading this book the other day and I got this great idea. You know, I don't make much of an effort. That just spills out naturally for me. But if that's not how you normally interact, then that's maybe a sort of habit that you can work on. And attributing, you know, when you have had a success, publish the blog post, done the thing you wanted to do. And okay, an example of that would be building a second brain. The way that the stuff I've learned from Tiago Forte, this talk that I did today, and the way I put my notes together, and the way I understood where to find them again, has been really key. So that's some recent learning I've done. That's you know, so attributing that learning is probably important too. Yeah.
Cool. We've got time for one more question, then we'll jump into the breakout groups. So for this last one, this is from Trish, and feel free, I'll try to share it back, Trish, but if I missed anything, please jump in. But yeah, she said she's keen to hear more about how you support more junior team members to build confidence, to self-manage, and to also build a plan that they believe in.
Cool. And look, I think support really key there, and that's going to be possibly more time in the early stages. Again, with role modeling, are you learning and are you doing things that you aim to do? That can be hard. Someone said to me, someone others to change it as, you know, it's like, yes, it's so hard to change what I do. So, you know, trying to help someone else do that even more. So being role model is that starting place. I think information, like if I'd understood that I had more, that I should be managing my own career more rather than letting someone come up with my learning plan for me. If I'd understood that 20 to 25 years ago, that would have been cool. So I think just even having that bit of knowledge to be able to support is really good. That whole feedback cycle, let's make sure that we're, reaching out and understanding how that junior is doing, and just gently getting them into the sort of being able to give and receive feedback is really important. And around feedback, the thing that I say all the time when people say to me, "Give me feedback," hey, tell me about the feedback that you've been giving. And that's quite an interesting conversation, because, getting feedback, I think, starts with giving feedback. So I think that's something can really foster in a junior. When I say feedback, I mean positive, not just constructive. So supporting your junior and being able to thank someone for, the learning that they've just got, just any sort of situation, I think that can be really key. But I would spend more time with them to help them to understand that whole chaos, the learning they're going to do isn't going to be linear, just to understand that world and keep talking to them to help them feel comfortable with that, because it's going to be super different than the computer science degree that they may have just stepped in from. Yeah.
Thank you. Lovely. So we'll shift gears, not cutting off the discussion, but shift gears here. So we'll stop the recording because we're going to move into the breakout groups. And so,